First tonight, Fairborn could join the growing list of cities that have put moratoriums in place for the business side of recreational marijuana. City Council, they're having a discussion about it tonight. Generally, Boric was there during the meeting and has an update for us.
Fairborn leaders are open to a moratorium, but this was just the first step tonight. They'd like to gather more information, and they decided that they're going to revisit this issue next month at their next working session.
We want to make sure that we look at it very carefully. We want to make sure that we are following guidelines. And again, like all the other communities, we are waiting to see what those specific guidelines are from the state of Ohio.
Fairborn leaders say they aren't rushing into a decision about enacting a moratorium on the growing, processing, and selling of marijuana, but they are considering one. Questions from council members came up about how flexible the moratorium would be if they put one in place. If the state moved faster or slower than their moratorium length, could they adjust it? Some specific questions about dispensaries came up, but there weren't any questions about facilities that would grow it. Mayor Daniel Kirkpatrick anticipates that coming up in later discussions.
This whole area, Bath Township, Fairborn, Greene County, has a lot of agriculture. So we expect that there may be some efforts to have a marijuana growing program.
Mayor Kirkpatrick says that's another area they need state guidance on and will look at what surrounding communities do. A moratorium would help the city buy time until the state puts some regulations in place, giving them some clarity to work with. That's a big reason Mayor Peggy Lehner, Kettering's mayor, says her city put a 9-month moratorium in place.
If you sell it, where you sell it, how much you sell it for, who grows it, how much profit can they make. And that will be largely steered by what the state chooses to do, because we really don't want a hodgepodge of rules across the state. So we will all be looking to the state. They haven't done anything yet.
For the cities that have already passed these moratoriums, it allows them to pause on rezoning and permit efforts for now. What I heard from Kettering's mayor today is that they are looking for guidance from the state, and that's going to be really important because they don't want to set up their own rules and then the state makes different ones. So this could take some time for all of this to come together to where people can actually go to dispensaries and buy marijuana. Back to you.
All right, here's a live look from our Eco Plumber Sky Cam over Beaver Creek. And we are talking about some potential winter weather because we haven't had much. And now it sounds like maybe possibly it's a little early, but this weekend could be something.
Yeah, we got our first real chance for something here in the Miami Valley because everything so far has been maybe a little dusting here and there. We do have a pretty potent storm system that we're going to be tracking by this weekend. Could bring us some accumulating snowfall. But as mentioned, it's still a ways away. Lots can happen as we head into the rest of this week. But for right now, it's just chilly. It's winter-like. We're hanging out in the 20s, 28 in Dayton, 29 in Troy. We got 30 in Sydney, 28 up in Wapakoneta. Factoring in the wind, it does feel like the teens and 20s. 19 is what it feels like in Dayton, feels like 19 in Troy, 20 in Sydney, with satellite and radar showing skies overall clearing out just a little bit, and we'll start to see some clearing, which will help temperatures drop into the 20s overnight. But we got another cold front to our northwest that will swing its way in tomorrow. This could even bring maybe a little light snow shower to a couple of snowflakes, and then it starts to get a little more active by this weekend. But for tonight, 26 with that mostly cloudy sky. Have our southwesterly wind 5 to 10 miles per hour, so factoring in the wind, a little bit of a wind chill, but I'll time out that weekend storm system coming up here in just a bit.
At least 48 people we now know have died from Japan's powerful earthquakes. Now that death toll continues to climb. Dozens were hurt out of it. Officials there say a magnitude 7.6 quake hit the coast of central Japan on New Year's Day. Water, power, cell service still down in some areas. It's believed hundreds are still stuck in the rubble. Tens of thousands of people had to evacuate and are now staying in emergency shelters where there's no heat or running water.
I feel like even now the building is shaking. Whenever an aftershock happens, I think of the main quake and my body trembles.
There have been more than 100 aftershocks since the initial quake. Experts are warning more aftershocks could continue for months. The good news is the immediate risk of tsunamis is over and the country's nuclear plants appear safe. Also in Japan, 5 crew members of a Japanese Coast Guard aircraft have died after a runway collision. The aircraft collided with a passenger plane on the runway of Tokyo's Haneda Airport. The passenger plane had 379 people on board. Thankfully, all of them got out safely before the plane caught fire. And an Ohio woman who works for Delta was at that airport in Tokyo when this all happened.
They all came with their tablets watching what appeared to be a plane on the runway on fire. Kind of scared for who was on the plane, especially seeing that it caught fire fast, Before, we even saw what the plane looked like, we kind of looked it up on the news, but the agents had already knew that it had hit a Coast Guard plane.
Now, the Coast Guard plane was taking relief supplies to people in need after the earthquakes. There had been no reports of engine or other problems before the landing. Officials are investigating what caused that crash. Former President Donald Trump has now appealed Maine's ballot decision. He's asking a court in that state to overturn it, which removed him from Maine's primary ballot in 2024, citing the 14th Amendment's ban on insurrectionists holding office. Now, in his filing, Trump accuses Maine's Secretary of State here, a Democrat, of bias. Last week, she said she had a legal obligation to take him off the ballot because of his actions during the January 6th Capitol riot. 14 other states are also challenging his ability to run for president, all in relation to the 14th Amendment. That includes Colorado, the first state to remove him from its primary. Trump is expected to appeal that state's decision any day now. The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to get involved. Any ruling from them would be the final say on everything in all states where Trump's eligibility is in question. New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez now facing additional federal criminal charges. Prosecutors have filed a superseding indictment accusing him of making positive statements about Qatar in exchange for gifts. Menendez has pleaded not guilty to the prior corruption charges against him. Prosecutors say he accepted bribes for official acts to benefit Egypt. Menendez has resisted calls to resign and is seeking re-election. Well, there's a new year and new laws, some going into effect impacting gun rights and immigration. Angela Brown breaking down the ones expected to have a big impact.
One of the most controversial new laws going into effect this year is from Texas, making illegal immigration a state-level crime, giving local police the authority to arrest migrants entering illegally. The ACLU posting they are suing. Now to Michigan, 4 gun laws take effect, including requiring safe storage, universal background checks, creating red flag laws, and a gun ban for those convicted of domestic violence. New York's Clean Slate Act becomes law this year as well. It will seal criminal records for misdemeanors after 3 years and felonies after 8, as long as the offender does not commit another crime. The law does not apply to records involving convictions for murder, sex crimes, domestic terrorism, or other serious crimes. And now to Alabama, where some are calling this a win for hourly workers. Overtime pay for more than 40 hours per week will not be taxed by the state. The tax break lasts until June 30th, 2025. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Water is now back to normal in 2 area cities after a water main break today. The city of Franklin took to Facebook this morning saying that a water break on South Main Street was causing low water pressure west of Main. Now, the water main break also caused a loss of water for some homes in the city of Carlisle. Repairs, though, have now been made and the issue has been resolved. The Ohio State Highway Patrol reporting 6 deadly crashes resulting in 7 deaths on Ohio's roadways over the New Year's holiday. One of those was in Preble County near the Montgomery County line. That's a decrease from last year when 13 deaths were reported. Troopers made more than 3,200 traffic enforcement contacts, including 272 OVI arrests, 106 distracted driving, and 409 safety belt citations. After 32 years, Dayton Fire Department Director and Chief Jeff Likens is retiring. The city hosting a retirement open house and recognition ceremony later this month. It will be held on the 31st at 1 p.m. in the Ohio Task Force 1 building. From everyone here at Dayton 24/7 Now, we wish him congratulations, and of course we thank him for his service. 1 year ago today, Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field in Paycor Stadium. We take a look at what his recovery has meant in the battle against heart-related issues, and a potential breakthrough on border negotiations in Washington. What it means next.
Plus, tracking our next weather maker, which could bring us some snow here in the Miami Valley. I'll have the latest on that coming up. Here's a live look from our EcoPlumber Skycam. You're watching Dayton 24/7 Now.
A year ago tonight, the world of the NFL, millions watching it at home, came to a stop. Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin collapsing on Paycor Field during Monday Night Football against the Bengals. He suffered cardiac arrest that night. In the tense moments following, emergency crews resuscitated him, rushed him to UC Medical Center. Chelsea Six spoke with members of the care team who saved his life and the impact he's had on the world.
On January 2nd, 2023, Bengals and Bills players were ready to face off in what's remembered as an unseasonably warm football game in Cincinnati. UC Medical Center's Dr. Woods Curry was one of the on-field physicians that night.
It was a super high energy environment because it was going to be playoff implications, two amazing teams. It didn't take a lot of playing time before it got a little bit different.
In the first quarter, Bills defensive back Damar Hamlin fell to the ground after a tackle and cardiac arrest. Dr. Curry was by Damar's side for the nearly 20 minutes as he received medical care on the field.
As the airway management physician, ultimately my job was to manage his airway, which ended up being something that he needed.
Crews rushed him to UC Medical Center. Emergency room nurse Don Schultz was in charge that night.
When he rolled in, to the world he was Damar Hamlin, Buffalo Bills. To us, he was Damar Hamlin patient. We took care of him just like we would take care of any other patient.
A week later, doctors released Hamlin from UC Medical Center to finish his recovery in Buffalo.
I knew who took care of him. I saw him when he rolled in. I just had a good feeling that he was going to have a good outcome.
Hamlin returned to the NFL this fall, was back in Cincinnati for the Bills-Bengals game in November. But he's accomplished more than that. UC Health has trained 6 times more people in CPR than in previous years. The American Heart Association saw a 620% increase in page views to hands-only CPR content. In 2023, Hamlin was the most Googled person in the world. That's what stands out most to Dr. Curry.
It is how inspirational Damar has been in the aftermath of this incident, and what a amazing and lifelong impact he's going to have because of the work that he's been doing.
Now, Hamlin's charity has received more than $9 million since the moment at Paycor Stadium. UC Medical Center was given some of that money, which is now helping cardiac arrest patients. 2 of the Dayton City Commission's 5 members were sworn into 4-year terms this morning at City Hall. Commissioner Matt Joseph starting his 6th term, Commissioner Christopher Shaw beginning his 3rd. We asked Shaw about his biggest priorities of the new year.
Pretty much the same priorities as I've had the last couple of times. Economic development, workforce development and inclusion, and bring folks into the workforce and getting them highly skilled and trained so that we can attract folks, businesses to our community. Everyone is committed to the process, and even though we've had some difficulty, COVID, and so many other different things, the city continues to move forward and grow, and can't ask for much more than that.
He thanked the voters for their trust and says the commission will not let them down.
Well, we have a chance for snow in the forecast for this weekend. Got a big storm system that you've probably seen talked about on social media, especially you may have even seen a map shared with some big numbers. Yesterday morning, I was looking at forecast models. The GFS in particular was indicating 11.7 inches of snow right here in the Miami Valley by Saturday evening. The latest run to come in of that same forecast model now showing just 0.2 of an inch. So big difference from yesterday to today. But one thing is that we do have a storm system that's going to be to the southeast of us, and we're going to be tracking it very closely because it will have the potential to bring us some accumulating snowfall for this upcoming weekend. Just uncertainties with the track of this low, as well as even precipitation type. We're going to be in the mid-30s, low to mid-30s. Could see some rain mixed in with this. So we're going to be watching this very closely. Again, lots of uncertainties at this time. We're still several days away, but heading closer into the weekend, we'll certainly give you as much information as we have, and we'll keep you updated as it continues to develop. But 20s out there for tomorrow morning. We got more clouds, even a couple of flurries by tomorrow afternoon. And then looking into our Thursday, it gets colder with those temperatures in the 30s. Have a look at our 7-day and what we're expecting again for that weekend coming up in a bit.
New York City's mayor is determined to stop migrants arriving on buses chartered by Texas's governor. Eric Adams changed the rules to reject those buses, which would have migrants dropped off in New Jersey. But there's a loophole. They will get tickets to ride trains into the city. Jersey City's mayor says a unified response is necessary. Edison's mayor says the city will send those buses back.
If it continues, it's kind of a regional approach from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and everybody would need to pitch in.
Edison Township police officers did not know if any of those 40 individuals were carrying weapons. They couldn't be identified. And that is a major problem. That's a major security risk. It's a health risk. And we're just not going to tolerate that.
Texas's governor transported migrants to cities with Democratic mayors calling them sanctuary cities in protest of what he sees as federal inaction on the issue. The White House calls it a stunt and says it's up to Congress to fix the problem. Now, December saw a record at the southern border with over 300,000 migrants processed. About 250,000 entered illegally, and the remaining 50,000 were by appointment. Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez, whose district covers a large stretch of the border, says Congress needs to address the issue with legislative action.
I think if the Senate can get to 60 in a meaningful way, that would send a powerful message that the House couldn't just set aside. But I'd be very clear. I mean, there has to be meaningful border solutions. It can't be window dressings.
Gonzalez and his Republican colleagues are on a 2-day border trip to receive briefings on the situation. He says he's been talking with members of both parties about coming up with tangible solutions. And speaking of that, Democrats are becoming more open now to the president's border negotiations after Senate negotiators decided not to restrict the White House's parole powers. However, the move will make a bill much less likely to pass since these restrictions remain a big priority for House Republicans. The White House says they are making progress on the bill, which would have passed, also grant emergency funds to Ukraine and Israel.
We are having, we believe, a very productive conversation in Congress with senators on how do we move forward in a bipartisan agreement to deal with the border security.
Now, there are 2 more issues that have yet to be resolved in the Senate, one making asylum seekers' standards stricter, and the other speeding up the removal of illegal migrants inside the country. Live look from our Eco Plumber Skycam back here at home over Beaver Creek. Let's check in with Natalie, who is out on a chilly Watson's Weather patio.
Well, cold enough to snow out here on our Watson's Weather patio, but we don't have any precipitation out here right now, but we do have the chance as we head into this weekend. We've been talking about that, but I just wanted to focus on temperatures here because it is feeling more like winter now after that very mild December we had with lots of 50s and 60s. We're starting out January on the cold note, right around normal, even slightly above normal for tomorrow with a high temperature of 40 degrees. It gets cold on Thursday. We have a cold front that will be making its way in, which will drop our temperatures back into the mid 30s. And then the weekend, we're tracking those mid to upper 30s. So again, with wintry precipitation in the forecast and some mid 30s, precipitation type is something that will certainly need to be watched as we head into this weekend as that storm system does make its way in. But coming up, I'll have a look at our 7-day forecast and a little more details on what we're expecting for this weekend.
The Boys and Girls Club transforming their space into a youth development center. The services it'll provide for kids in the community. Also, someone up in Michigan starting off the new year a millionaire. Details about their lucky win next. You're watching Dayton 24/7 now. A story from our partners at the Dayton Business Journal now. The Boys and Girls Club of Dayton planning to transform existing space into the Miami Chapel Inspire Zone Youth Workforce Development Center. It'll provide education, support, and technology for career and skills training and development, all for West Dayton's kids and teens. It'll focus on the fields of advanced manufacturing, tech, aviation, and healthcare. Now, the club on West Stewart Street building will convert the old indoor pool and locker room into a technology-enabled space and will be ADA compliant. And if you'd like to read more about this, you can go to Dayton247now.com. This story and others like it is under the Dayton Business Journal heading in the News tab. Inflation is a bit bigger this new year compared to the start of 2023. According to the Census Bureau, there were over 335 million people in the country at midnight on New Year's Day. That's more than 0.5% increase from last year. Census officials say with births, deaths, and migration, one person is added to the U.S. population about every 24 seconds. The estimated global population, now over 8 billion people. And one of those 335 million people starting the new year off in the way many of us wish we could. Someone in Michigan starting off 2024 as a multi-millionaire that won the first Powerball jackpot of the year. That was $842 million. The lump sum payment, $425 million. Now, according to Powerball, it's the 5th largest jackpot ever won. It's also the first time a person has won a jackpot on New Year's Day since the game